Hello and welcome. On the bench now I've got a Ampmaker kit. It's a little single-ended amplifier, Fender Champ-ish, very similar. So a guy that I do a bit of work for has got a music shop. He's bought this kit and he's asked me to put it together. So I thought we'd have a bit of a look at it while we're constructing it, and just see what you get in these kits and what the quality's like. So if you've not seen these kits before, if you type Ampmaker in all one word, if you type Ampmaker in Google, I'm sure that will pop up, and he's got various kits on there. So let's have a look at this start. Well, I'm looking at this turret board, which it looks quite good quality. It's quite a thick board. Turrets are nice and wide, and just I've got this is a Fender Champ turret board, just as a comparison, and you can see the thickness is about the same. These turrets are just a little more narrower, but those you can see if I just put a comparison in there, you might be perhaps can't tell on camera, but these are a little wider. So it's a good board. Now this is supposed to be very similar to a Fender Champ, but the board obviously doesn't match up to a Champ board, so it may be a little bit different. Now you can download the schematic online for this particular kit, which we'll also be having a good gander at. So we've got that. So let's have a look at the chassis. So it looks like a galvanized chassis, nice and light, but certainly good enough for this job. For a little 5-watt amp, it's ideal. So we've got that. We've got some wire in there, all the bolts, and they all look good there. And what we've got in here, so we've got the power inlet, Euro socket, whatever you call those, with the fuse built in, so that's really handy as well. It's got the fuse in there, so that's good, well thought out. That Noise is Pink has come to join us, and there she is. And she obviously wants to do some assessing of this Ampmaker kit. No, she actually doesn't. She's just come to assess me to see if she can get some treats down her. And I'm afraid it's looking rather like I'm going to have to pause for a moment and feed her, otherwise we won't get rid of her. Right, so let's have a look at this power transformer. So we've got 6.3 volts at 3 amps, and we've got 6v6 is about, I think, 650 milliamps on the filament. 700 I would have thought, no more. I might be wrong, but it's around that. And we've got the 12AX7, so that's 300 milliamps. So if we say we've got 1 amp, and that's being generous, really, we're well in with that, so that's good. That's a good transformer there. It's well rated. So let's have a look at the secondaries on here. So we've got 275 or 190 volts there. So we're going to use the 275, and if we times that by 1.414, we get 388 volts, as you can see there, about 380 volts, and that will be the rectified DC when it's smoothed and ready to go out to the plates of the tubes. We'll have about 380 volts there, so that's dishing out a good bit of voltage. So that's an excellent transformer. Now I've not used these transformers, but as I say, I have bought one of these transformers for a project, so I'm looking forward to using that. And they do these in 80 milliamps or 160 milliamps, and I'm not sure if they don't do one bigger. I can't remember. I'll have to check on the website. So that's the power transformer. That all looks good. The holes, the hole for the cutout is there as well, so I would imagine he just slots in there, and that's good because I'm terrible at metal work. I hate it. So thankfully there's no holes to cut out in this kit. So we've got 2 good transformers there. Now let's have a look at some of the components that we've got. So here's the capacitors that we've got there. And you see we've got, let's just have a look what we have got in there. Let's open this bag and have a look at the goodies. So these capacitors are not the same microfarad rated as we've got for a Fender Champ. So we've got 47 microfarad there, that'll be for node 1. And the others are 16s there. So that 16 is what you normally get on node 1 on a Fender Champ. So we've got three of those there. We've also got some orange drops there. We get that in front of the camera. There we go. I'm not used to this camera yet. So there we've got some orange drops there. And yes, excellent. We've got 2 of those. They'll be the coupling capacitors. Orange drops. Almost sounds like, it being as it's getting near Christmas, that almost sounds like some sweets. And then let's have a look at the diodes and resistors which we've got here. There we go. Now my only gripe with this Ampmaker kit, and it is really a mild one, it's more a personal thing, I don't like to see half-watt resistors in a tube amp, I just don't. So I'm going to change those, but you don't have to, and they will work fine. It's just, I just don't like to see them. It's a personal thing. So that's my only personal gripe with this kit. Other than that, this kit's fantastic. It really is. I'm quite looking forward to building this. This will be excellent. Right, so I've downloaded the manual for this kit, and it's the W55 construction guide. 29 pages of this. It's really thorough. I've just had a quick go through it. Excuse Pink there, just being in the corner. We go for days and not see her, and then suddenly we can't get rid of her. She's off, I think. No, she's not. So just come out of the way, Pink. Right, we're going to start putting this chassis together. And so I found the assembly page that we've got here. And this is telling you how to fit these transformers and things. So remember, when you're fitting these transformers, the primary side really needs to go towards the edge of the chassis here, and then the primary wires will run out to the outlet at the back, the mains outlet socket. If you put it the other way around, then you're dragging the wires over the top of the transformer from the secondaries going over here, so it makes sense to put that way. And it does mention that in here, actually. It says you can put it either way, but really you don't want to be putting it either way. It really needs to go that way around. So now if we look at that, the primaries are here and the secondaries are here, so that goes down there, and then we've got those primaries. We can run the primary wires along there to the outlet socket. The nuts are on the transformer already, so they're 6mm, so we've just got to screw those off. We've got lock nut washers there as well, so that's good. And then we've just got to ease him into those holes and bolt him on. Right, so there we are. We've got the transformer on, and if we look, you can see there, and you see Pink's joined us. You can see the primary is there, the secondary is there, and that fits snug. These primary winding transformers as well is one thing I like, is these bolts, they're generous. So if you're using these on a thicker chassis, other than this kit, because of course you can buy these separately, I've already bought one of these for another project. You can use these bolts on a thicker chassis, so they're really good. They've been really generous with those. That's excellent. So yes, that's that fitted. So the next thing, and Pink sat on the paper as usual, thank you Pink, is the output transformer. Where's that? It is here. Now the output transformer goes there, like so. Now this output transformer is different to the one that's in this manual, and the one that is in this manual is a diagonal one, I think. I remember looking at that, and I think if we just look into there, it says diagonal on there. I'm going to try and zoom in on that if I can. Just bring it up to the camera. I'm sure that says diagonal on there. I'm looking through the camera, so it's a bit more difficult for me to see that. But anyway, that's a different transformer. So we've got this one. Right, so we've now got the output transformer on there as well, you can see, and we've dropped that grommet in there as well, because that'll be for the wires that's coming through it. So the next thing on this chassis assembly sheet is the tube sockets, or at least the preamp tube there, the 12X7. So we're going to stick that on next. Ah, excellent. I've just opened the packet for the to get the tube sockets out, and this was in there, and that slides over there like that. So we've got the preamp tube socket here, nice ceramic one, and we pop him there, and he goes over there like that, and we just put the bolts in, and he's a winner. Right, so we've got the preamp socket in. That was pretty easy. Right, I'm working with limited room here, because you can see why. Madam's placed herself in. So we've got that on, you see there, and we just have a look underneath. Right, I'm installing this power switch. Now the one thing this switch doesn't have on it, and to be fair, not many switches do. Oh, actually, does it? Just looking in the bag, in this bag. I don't see any locking washers, spring washers for this switch. Now, don't often find these on switches, but these are just seem to be a swine for coming loose. So I bought these. These are M12s, and he just slots on there nicely. So always pays to keep some of those in if you wiring amps up, doing these kits and whatnot, using switches, and that all that'll do is just prevent it coming loose. But they don't always come loose, but sometimes they do. But that usually guarantees it probably won't. So there, I've got that in. It just wants nipping up. So just a thing really. Now, most of these chassis, they hang upside down. So in other words, the transformers hang upside down, and the tubes do. And the orientation of this switch and this socket are for that purpose, for it hanging upside down. But these, again, these chassis, you know, you can put them in anything you want really, in any box you've made or whatever. You might have a bit of a box that you know for a head, and you want it the other way. So if you put it the other way, you'll see that then the switches and the fuse thing will be upside down. So you just got to spin those round. So just something to bear in mind. You know, if you already know what you're going to put this in, just bear in mind that those will be upside down if you're mounting it upwards like that, into a head cabinet or something like that. Right, there we go. So apart from the board, we've got everything on there now. Obviously we're not going to do the board till we've got that all wired up, all the components on, and all the wires there. So let's have a look what we've done. So I've got the speaker socket in there, and I've just pushed forward with this a bit to get this going. We've got the pilot light, that's 220 volts, and we've got the input socket there, and now we've got the pot in. We've also got the faceplate on there. You have to cut this pot, and it's a very delicate operation sometimes cutting pots. If you can damage the internals of the pot when you're cutting through the shaft. But I've come up with a very ingenious way of cutting those. if you get a Stanley knife blade and hold it in the pliers, hold it under the gas ring till it starts to glow red, and that usually takes about a minute to minute and a half. And then all you do is just, while it's held tight in the pliers, just hold it to the width, the length that you want, and just gently guide it through, and it goes through like butter. And that way put no strain on the actual pot at all. It's really, really easy to do. And then when you've done that, just get some, I just used a bit of this, just use some glass paper and just gently rub around the edges of the shaft, just to smooth it off, just very gently, without putting any strain on the pot potentiometer. And then the knob goes on, and he's a winner. It's very easy to do that, and it saves messing about sawing it. And one thing, I have damaged the odd pot cutting shafts down, and it's one day I thought, I know an easier way of doing that, and it worked perfectly. So that's what I've done with that one. So we're ready now to start wiring this up, and I was just looking in here now where we're going to start wiring this up. So probably the best thing to start with is getting the heaters, the mains or the primary on the mains transformer, the heaters, pilot light, and so on. The filaments, rather, or heaters as we call them in this country, but filaments. Wiring those up, and yes, and then it should start to look like an amplifier. I'm really enjoying this project. This is a really, really good kit, and they're also very cheap as well. And normally things that are cheap, you know, look cheap and go together cheap, but these really are good quality. I'm very, very impressed with this. I can't wait to get this up and running and get the old guitar blasting through it. It's mint. So I'm gonna make a start now at some of the wiring. Now we've got that big pile of wire in the Z bag, and that's excellent there. So we have a look. We've got some shrink tubing there as well. Good. And we've got some we've also got some ground bus wire as well to go along the back of that board. And if we look at the said item on here, you can see that you can see how this is put together. So there's a lot of photographs and things to make this quite easy. You can see, if we look, just have a look at that, if we just get that, you can see we've got these wires here. This is going to the pilot light from the main switch. We've got the main socket there, we've got the wires, the 6.3, and that's going under the switch there. It's going all the way around the chassis, under that speaker socket, and then coming round to these tubes here. For that, we've got a centre tap as well on there, I do believe. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. We've got a centre tap on there. That means we don't need any virtual centre tap. So that's brilliant as well, having that. That centre tap looks like it's going up and round onto one of the valve pins there, but we'll have a look at that. We've got the schematic anyway, so we'll have a look at that. Decided to propagate this board before I start doing all that, partly because I just felt like it. And I noticed a few things that are different in this kit to this photograph that we've got in here, layout and schematic as well. I've got the schematic here. So if we look at the schematic there, and that's upside down. Just looking through the camera. Sorry, you're not going to see a deal like that, are you? Let's see if we can find a pointer. I'll use this screwdriver with most 3 pushers. So you can see we've got 22 microfarad, 22 there, and 22 there. Should be going that way really from A to B. But if we look on this board, and if I turn this board round so it's the same, and we pop it on there, we've got 47, 16, 16 and 16. So that's what I got out of the bag. Don't know why that should be. Not a huge problem. In the 16s will be fine. On a Fender Champ they only use 8s. 47 on there, that's fine as well. It's extra smoothing. And yeah, that, but just a bit different. So because of this, I've had to change odd things. So because this capacitor here is now bigger, if you kind of look on, if we look on this picture here, you can see that this space between these two between these two big capacitors here, this one and this one, we've got space there, which means we've got space between the cathode bypass capacitor and the cathode resistor. But on this one we haven't. And what put that there, we haven't really got space between those now because that's bigger, which means that that resistor will be touching that capacitor and this capacitor, and they do get quite hot. Also, if there's a fault on the valve, that'll get red hot. So what I've done is I've raised it above the cathode bypass capacitor, and I've put that above there because, excuse me, because that's just dropping through, because obviously heat rises, rather than putting the capacitor above the resistor. So I'll just slightly change that. It's no problem. It's just strange why that's in there. I don't know whether that's a mistake in the kit, or whether they've just changed the kit, or whether the guy that I'm doing this for has changed these caps. I have no idea. But anyway, that's the way we've done it. To be fair, having the 47 on there is much better for the first node, much better. And the 16 and 22 really don't make that much difference, to be fair. So I've just got the diodes to go on there now. I've used all 1 watt resistors, so the half watts I've just left out and put some of my own in there. I don't like half watt resistors. It's a personal thing. That is no detriment to this kit whatsoever. I just want to make that clear. The guy that's designed this kit knows what he's doing. I just don't like half watt resistors. I don't like to see them in amps. I like them to look beefy. So it's a personal thing. For me, doing this all the time, it's easier for me just to change those. But what's in the kit will work absolutely fine. So there's no problems there. Right, we've done a spot of soldering. So we've got the ground bus in there, and we've got the ground bus for the preamp section there. There's actually splitting that ground bus. That's just prevent any ground loops. So everything's in there now. They're soldered in, and we're going to get the wires to it and start wiring this up now. So yeah, just a few things we've done there. So, and if I turn that sideways now, you can see that space between the cathode bypass capacitor and the cathode resistor. And again, the reason I've done that is this capacitor is much bigger, and that cathode resistor would have been touching the sides of that capacitor and also the cathode bypass. So I put the cathode bypass underneath, heat rises, we've lifted that up so it's in some fresh air. And that's, with cathode resistors, that's something, it's always a good idea, because they do get hot and they do draw a bit of current. So that has sorted out that. Now if you're building one of these kits, follow the instructions to the letter. I've read through the instructions, not because I needed to know particularly how to wire this up, although there is some things in here that you need to, you know, make sure are right. But obviously for me, I've got more experience doing this. But if you've not, then read through the manual, you know, and go through it thoroughly, because that will guide you into building this amplifier. But the other thing it will do is it'll make sure you don't make any mistakes. And sometimes you solder something in and then you realize you've got to unsolder it again to put something else in, and that does happen even to the, you know, best techs in the world. That happens. You've got something on your mind, you do it, it's well, you solder something into the wrong lug. So if you know, if you're experienced enough to build one of these, but you've not built, you know, it's perhaps you've done a few repairs on amps or one thing or another, but you've never actually built one, then I recommend you do go through the you know, the manual that's with it, and it is very thorough, and it's very good, as this kit is. So the 47 microfarad capacitor and the electrolytic and the 316s on there, that has come to light. There is a little note in the manual about that, which I didn't see. One is because I didn't have my glasses on, and the other one is because at times I'm a bit of a knob. But I did spot that, and it may be that one there. Sorry about that. That was the camera shaking, and again, sorry. So if we look, there, 2020 update. Your kit comes with 360 microfarad and 147 microfarad instead of the 422s that's in these photos. This was forced by manufacturing changes, but it makes no difference to the operation, which is what I said before. It won't make any difference. In fact, if anything, it's better with this 47 in there. You know, it'll be quieter and better smoothed. I need to start wiring this up now. We've done some of the wiring, so let's have a look at what we've done. So we've got the and pink's annoying me again. You can just see her there as usual. So we'll just use a pointer there. So you can see we've wired up the inlet for the power. We've wired up the switch, and we've come across here with this, across here, onto the primary of the transformer, and then we've got that neon light paralleled on there. So he's done, and then we've done the heaters. So we've got this 6.3 volts going here, and we've got that going to the output tube, and then we've got the 12AX7 here. Well, the heaters are wired to there as well with this wire here. Right, so we've moved on a bit further now, and we've wired up the preamp tube, except for pin 2, which is the input socket from the jack socket. That screwdriver looks rather large, doesn't it, on there? Could do with something smaller. That's better. So we've got pin 7 here on the 12AX7, and that's going to the volume, because the input comes in through pin 2 at pin 1, then it's decoupled, and then the signal comes back in through the volume, out of the wiper, through pin 7, out pin 6, and then back into the board there to this other coupling capacitor. And yes, it's looking most delightful. So we're getting there now. So most of the power's wired up, if not all of it now. Oh sorry, no, the only thing we've got to wire, and I've left that till last because I'm working this board upwards this way, so the only thing to go on is the feed, the 275 the AC to the diodes, which will go there. So that's, and then I think that's all the power wired up. So we're getting close now with this, getting close to plugging it in, and I can't wait, because I've really enjoyed this project, and I've just got a feeling this is going to sound mint. Right, we're not far off completion on this splendid amplifier. So we've got all the jack sockets, all the valve sockets wired up, except for the control grid on stage 1 of this 12AX7. So which will go from here down to pin 2, and just use a 68k resistor, and it should reach down to there without any wire. So there's that to do, and the other thing left to do is wire up the speaker socket. Now this transformer, as I've said on here, is different to the one we've got, but we've still got the 3 tap-ins, 4, 8 or 16 ohms. Right, this is all wired up now, all finished. So now the next thing is the testing that we've got to do. And if you've built one of these for the first time, or it's the first amp you've built, or even if you've only built a couple, you really need to go through this, through these testing stages to make sure that that this amp is running okay. The first tests with the tubes out, and I normally do that anyway when I build an amp. And also, so this part, some important calculations. So these are to check that all the current is correct on it, and I said I'd broach on this later. All these are all new components. If there's an issue on one of these transformers and for some reason it's drawing more current, or there's a problem, these calculations will find that, and it's really important that you go through these to make sure that there's nothing, nothing faulty or wrong. Also, that you may have wired something up wrong. I may have wired something up wrong. Nobody, it doesn't matter, how good you are, people make mistakes. And here's a silly example. Just when I wired the screen up, I used the wrong coloured cable. So another plank moment, it's no big deal, and it still works fine, but you're doing a lot of wiring and for a long period of time, so the chances of making a mistake are quite high. And although it's not a mistake in the wiring, I've just misused the colour, which is fine. It doesn't matter, it's not a detriment, but that's just an example, a plank moment, and I have many of those. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug this amp in. Now the other thing is, of course, I've got a variac, which makes life a hell of a lot easier. So the first thing I normally do when I've built an amp is I'll just, without the tubes in, I'll just put 10 volts through it and just check round and make sure I've got correct pos neg, all that continuity is right, everything's there. So that's always the first thing that I do. If you ain't got a variac, then obviously that's more difficult. So I'm going to plug all this in, get a speaker plugged into it, and we'll make a start. So we've got 14 volts on there now. So we're going to work his way down the line. Just make sure that, yeah, we've got the voltage there. Yep. Now this voltage will be relatively the same along here because we've got no tubes in, so we're not drawing any current. Yep, that's good. And the plate resistors. Yep, that's good. I think it's this probe, that's a bit probed out. It says ready for a new set. Yep, so we've got the voltage there, so that's good. That's excellent. Let's just test at the points now on the I'm going to test at the sockets now, just to make sure we've got, just get that back on there, that we've got power on to these sockets. So yeah, pin 1 of the 12x7, yeah, there's our 14 plus volts. Yeah, pin 6 of the 12x7, there's our 14 volts. Plate of the 6v6, there's the 14 odd volts. Screen, yeah, got that. So we've got voltage all round there, so that's all looking good. Right, we're starting to just fire this amp up gently now on the variac. I've got a current meter on the wall, so we're keeping an eye on the current, make sure it's not drawing any current. I've got 2 meters here. I've got one down on the first stage of the 12x7, and I've got one on node A. So the reason I always do that is that as soon as I'm bringing this up, as the voltage will get lower on this meter than it will on this one, as the current begins to draw on the preamp tubes down at that far end of the reservoir. So we're just going to bring this up steady, and you can see that they're virtually the same, and we've got very little on the variac. And we're just checking what we're drawing. So we've got 40 volts, and we just bring this up nice and steady. 50 volts now. We're not drawing any current to speak of. So the variac's at 50 volts now, and we've now got, and you can see now there's a slight voltage difference, if you probably see on there. So we've got 70 volts on this meter, now I've got 66 on this one. So even at 50 volts there is some slight current draw beginning. So we just take that up to 60 volts, and you can see that that's now beginning to, the difference between them's getting greater. So we're now at 70 volts on the variac, and we are now 102 on node 1, and we're 93 volts on node 4. We're actually on there, which is, and I've actually got that on well, I've actually got it on the other side of the plate resistor onto the tube. So I've got 93 there. So if I just move that the other side there, and I've got 96 now. So as the current goes up, the difference between either side of that resistor will also get greater. So now we are going to hit 100 volts. There we go, that's 100 volts. I'm just going to turn the volume full up on it as well. See, now you can see that we've got quite a dip. Now we know that even though we've got no sound yet, we can see that we're getting some conductance now. So we've got 146 on the node A. Just move that back a bit so you can see. And we've got 103 now on that first stage of the 1287. And I hear sound already. We're drawing 82 milliamps, and that includes that also includes the actual variac as well, because obviously that draws current. So now we're at 110 volts, and you can see now I've got 160 volts, and we've got 106. Well, it's drawing down now, so that's dropped to 159 and 105. It's got quite a difference now. So now we're at 110 volts. We're just going to have a bit of a look round. I'm just going to check. So we've got 124 volts on one side of that plate resistor. Now we've got 102, and you can see that's now got greater. Let's go here. We've got on the 22k on the other side, which is actually on the 10k side, we've got 136 at that. If we go then past that, we've got 152, and if we go past that, we've probably got virtually the same, 153, just a volt difference there. And we need to just see on the plate of the tube there, we've got 153 volts, 150 volts, sorry. So that's good. On there, whoops, that's just popped off. It's getting a bit tired, that one. Let's pop it on there. So yes, that's all looking good, very good. So we just try and test on this, and you can hear, we can clearly hear we've got sound on there. Yeah, 104 on there, and 106 on there on that. So pin 1 of the 1287, 104, pin 6 on the 1287, we've got just 3 volts more on there, 106, couple of 3 volts more. So that's all looking good. 84 milliamps we're drawing off the mains, so that's no big deal. Let's see what's going across this cathode resistor, and we've got 3.3 volts there. And the other thing I'm going to check now is I'm going to check the AC. I'm just going to check the let's put another pair of glasses on to do this. Yeah, my eyes are terrible. So I'm now just going to check across the heaters and see what we've got. 1.5 volts, 0.5 on there, so that's there, that's coming up nicely. Remember, we're only at 110 volts. Just check that again. Yeah, about 1.6 across there. Check it across the tube. Sorry if I'm in the way. Yeah, we've got voltage there. So all looking good. And again, if you're not experienced at, experienced at this, then go through those sheets religiously to make sure that and we will go through that sheet with the measurements. We're just going to take some measurements and make sure all the current's correct. We'll do that. So I'm going up to 120 volts now, and I've got 175, and I've got that on AC full, so that's now 109 against 174. You can see now that current, the difference in that voltage with the current draw is quite large. You can hear the amps coming up now. 130 volts, and that's the noise is because I've got that on there. If I remove it, there you can see that's pretty quiet. So I think the next thing to do, I'm just going to pop that on there so we can keep an eye on the bias voltage. I'm just going to put a cable in it now and see what we have. And we have sound. Rather somewhat flubby speaker we've got under there for testing, but we've got sound. Now I'm just going to get this meter and I'm going to put it across this cathode resistor, like so, and we have got 16.34 volts going across that cathode resistor. And I'm just going to do a rough measurement. That's 470 ohms. It could be 464, even less than that. Yeah. So you to get it accurate, you need to test that resistor and get an accurate reading. But I'm just going to do a quick crash reading on the current. So 16, and it's actually fluctuating, so 16.45 divided by 470 ohms equals 35 milliamps of current. That sounds about right. It does. Now when you're measuring the plate voltage, it's got to be plate to cathode. I've just noticed there's a fault on that. You've probably seen that before me, because I'm that busy looking at what I'm testing. There's a fault on that. Oh, right, yeah, that's faulty. Oh, there we go. That's a problem. Not a major problem, but it is a problem, I'm afraid. So I'll have to have a look at that. I'll look at that in a minute. That's a minor issue. $322 volts. So 322 volts, 11.27 watts. That'll do nicely. Right, this amp is all finished now. We're all up and running, and just just going to have a look at a few bits and bobs. So firstly, this schematic we're going to look at. So if we look at this layout that we've got, the schematic, and you can see on this amp there's no cathode bypass capacitor on the first stage like there is on a Fender Champ. That's normally 25 microfarad. Now you could add one if you wished, if you want to get this 100% authentic Fender Champ. You could wire one into a switch, and on this actual board there's plenty of holes on this. This is one of the things I like about this kit, is that they've drilled holes here on this part here, and here. All you've got to do is drill through the faceplate where those holes are, and you're away. You can put switches on, you can put a tone control. So there's loads of, you know, possible mods you can do on this amp. And I'm sure there's probably a few on, you know, on his website, the guy that's done this. So, you know, do go on there and have a look. There's plenty of other Champ mods all over the internet that you can look at. So yeah, this is a really well built amp. The power supply on this amp is slightly different to a Fender Champ, but it's a hell of a lot more quieter, and this amp will be a lot more punchy because of that. So another thing that I've spotted on this amp as well, that's on this kit, is, and we're just going to take that and go there. So we've got 341 there. We go the other side of that diode, we've got 331. Now that diode is just dropping the HT voltage a bit on here. It's a 5 watt Zener diode, I do believe, from what I've read in there. Not something I've seen in an amp before. And you can see that's wired, because that's wired on the negative side. There on the negative side. So if I go the other side, that diode, I've got 341. So now I'm going straight from neutral to live. I've got 340 volts. If I go the other side, I've got 330 volts. So that's dropping the HT by 10 volts there. Maybe that's been done because the kit, you know, with the kit, it's just pushing it a little over 12 watts on the dissipation. I don't know, but anyway, that's what that's doing. It's reducing voltage. It's a 24 volt Zener diode, I think it said on when I read it, but yeah, that's dropping 10 volts on there. So that's another thing, and that's a useful item if you're building an amp and you feel you've just got a bit too much HT. It's certainly better than putting a resistor in there and trying to do it that way. So that's another thing that's different in this amp to a normal Fender Champ. But really, other than that, and not having this cathode bypass capacitor on there, basically it's the same. And we're just gonna have a look at some of these things now. So some of these are some of the things that you must do if you're building this kit and you're not experienced. You know, if you've not had a lot of experience, or this is your first kit or your second, you really do need to fill these in. And the reason for that is because if there's any faults on these transformers, I mean, they're brand new, even brand new parts get faulty. If there's any problems on these transformers or anything, or you might have wired something up wrong, and you can look at an amp 50 times and think, yeah, I've wired that up, and then suddenly eventually you'll spot what you have done wrong. So these are imperative. If there's problems with the transformers, they're drawing too much current or something like that, it's likely showing up in these measurements. And so obviously then, and it does say, if any of these voltages aren't correct, get in touch with Ampmaker. So I'm just going to do one or two of these, just we go through. So we've got the the 100 ohm resistor that we've got there. So if we just look on the schematic, it's upside down. I think that's the second time I've done that. So if we look, just use the corner of this, we have got there a 100 ohm resistor there, and that is the one I've got the probes across, and you can see that there's 3.9 volts across there. So we need to divide that by the value of the resistor, which is 100 ohms. So, and it should be the equation should come out between 35 milliamps and 45 milliamps. So let's give that a go. So we've got 3.89 on the meter. That's the volts drop across the resistor. And we divide that by 100 and we get 38.9. And so we're kind of, yeah, well good on that. So that should be, let's just move that there, sorry, that's 35 to 45 milliamps, and we've got 38.9 milliamps. So that's good in there. So you'd write that in there, and then we've got the bias, which we've already done that there. So that's we know that's we got 11.2 on that wattage, because we've done that as the wattage. We normally you deduct 5% for the screen as well on the tube, so we're well inside with that. As long as we've not gone over 12 watts, that's fine. And then we have the 10k resistor, which is the next one along. So we'll hone in across there, and now we have about 46 volts across there on that one. So we're going to divide that by 10k. So 45.9 divided by 10,000 ohms. Oh, what does it do there? Oh, that's dropping now. Why is that? That's obviously the fluctuation on the mains. So it's going up again. So 45.9 divided by 10,000 equals, that should come out at, quite difficult to read this when you're doing that, that should come out at 4 milliamps or so, and I have got 4 milliamps on there, so that 4.5 milliamps, nearly 4.6, so that's okay, 4 milliamps or so, so that's pretty good. And so on and so on. And so we've got you've got R10 the 22k, which is the next one along. So if we hone in on that, get that off of there, and hone in there, on there like that, and now we've got 36 volts drop on that, 36.5, 22,000 ohms equals, what does that, what result should we have there? I'll match that up to mine. Yeah, the 22k. So we should have between 1.5 and 2.5, and I've got 1.65. So yeah, all's looking good. So I've just done a few of those tests there, just to give you an idea of what's got, you know, how you do it. Basically, you're just testing across the resistor for the voltage and dividing it by the impedance. And you can, if you follow through all of those, that you'll know that your amp's running perfectly. I'm not going to do them all. When you've been doing this and you're experienced at it, you can just tell that it's running right. So that's all good. So having done all of that and just gone through that a bit with you and gone through the schematic, what we are going to do now is have a listen. And this is the part I'm really looking forward to, because I know from people I've spoken to and looking on the internet that these amps sound fantastic, so I can't wait to get this plugged in. Right, we've we've got this all completed now. We're going to have a listen. that's the WF55 Ampmaker little single-ended 6v6 kit, and I've really enjoyed building this. It's been great, and it sounds awesome. It really is a brilliant sounding little amp, and for the money that you can't go wrong. If you want to visit his website, it's ampmaker.com. You will find though that at the moment he's on a winter break, and I can't fault him. I hope he's gone abroad and he's sitting in the sunshine, and most of the kits are sold out, and there's no surprise really how good they are for, you know, for the money they cost. So that's it for this one. So thanks for watching, and I really appreciate everyone who's subscribed. If you haven't subscribed and you wish to do so, then I'll be really grateful. So you all take care, and I'll see you all in a future video. So bye bye for now.